Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Pierce. I also go by Ekpap on the internet, like my channel name. I painted this canvas. It's going to be a time lapse. I'm going to talk a little. I'm going to explain my process. It's going to be pretty relaxing. It's going to be pretty awesome. Thank you for joining me for the ride, and let's do it. Alright, so we're going to get started here with just some simple pencil marks. I usually tend to try and just vibe with it and draw random shapes until I get an idea of what I want. I knew I wanted a mountain in the middle, so I made a mountain. I knew I wanted trees, so I made like little blobs. And then I just made a simple grid to understand the 3D space that I was working with. I also ended up moving my canvas over there because the light was so much better. So now we're over here, mixing paints. I show a lot of my paint mixing in this video, but not all of it. It's just kind of like, I use a lot of the same colors. Like this blue, I only showed you at the beginning because I'm essentially making the same blue about 10 times because I didn't realize very well how much acrylic I needed to cover a canvas this size because I've only ever really worked in my sketchbook. In fact, if you haven't seen the practice I've done for this video, feel free to click the little thing in the corner because I already made a video on practicing to make this canvas. But this blue is probably my favorite blue. It's like a nice sky blue, just a mixture of like, I think it was phthalo blue with some white, just like a light blue. And what I do after I start covering this up is I start making a lighter blue to make like the atmospheric haze that makes the bottom of the atmosphere a little bit lighter. I ended up not really making space for the mountains just because I was like, okay, I need to make it bright. And I ended up doing that. And I don't know why, but I left that little splotch up in the corner, like just like canvasy for a very long time. And now I'm just adding some little aberrations in the sky, like little clouds. And I'll add more clouds later. I didn't know if I wanted clouds or not at that point, but I did later. Right now I'm making like a dark mountain blue. Again, I ended up changing this later to like a dark yellow, but at this point in my painting, I don't really know exactly what colors I want, so I kind of make them like this kind of hazy blue that kind of fits the atmosphere a little bit. Kind of a mere replica almost of the ones I did in my watercolor painting. I will say acrylic is a lot more forgiving than watercolor because if you mess up, you can just paint over it. Whereas with watercolor, if you mess up, well, you messed up. You can't cover darker colors with lighter colors. That's not how it works. I'm making a very nice green. I had to work so hard to get the green I wanted. I used so much yellow ochre. It was just kind of like, I didn't realize how much yellow you needed in a green. Also, I still am struggling to understand how much paint I need to cover this canvas, so I keep going back and forth, making more paint, trying to make the same green. And I ended up making many different shades of yellow, which I think added a lot of depth to the like grass that I was trying to convey here. Like you can see there's some more saturated greens and then some more like darker greens and some lighter greens. Right here I'm just mixing some more paint. Now I'm adding in the heads of the trees. I'm gonna let you know, at this point in my painting, I have no idea where I'm going. I'm kind of just fumbling around trying to see what's right. This is like my first time painting a canvas. Again, I'm just kind of messing around with stuff, trying to get a feel for what I like to do as an artist. So, yeah. Also, if you guys have any tips at all at any point in this video and you're like, oh, Pierce did that wrong, like he totally messed up with the acrylics, you're not supposed to do that, let me know because I have no idea what I did wrong and what I did right. I kind of just know like what looks good and what doesn't look good, like kind of like the design aspects, like obviously like rule of thirds and like the golden ratio and all that, and also like what paints and colors look good together. But I don't really know very much about mixing paints. I don't really know much about like paint layering. I'm trying my best here. Like honestly, It looked good in the end, but I know that the trees themselves in the end also did not really have much depth, and I didn't really know how to add depth to them. I did start out with like these skeleton trees, which I really enjoy making because it helps me get an understanding of like the space as well as like where everything was going to be going. This is where I start adding the clouds. I looked up some like designs on Pinterest and looked at some Studio Ghibli backgrounds, and I really liked the clouds they had, so I ended up trying to replicate them. They start out very messy, as in like you can't really tell they're clouds. They end up kind of looking like mountains at first, just because of the shading I did. And I showed my painting to my residents halfway through at about this point, and they were like, "Those don't look like clouds, Pierce. Those look like mountains." And I was like, frick. So I end up going back and fixing them with like little splotches of white paint, and it looks pretty good after that. I also changed those blue mountains in the background to kind of yellow because they're kind of blending into the clouds. They look like they're a part of the clouds, which is also not good. But yeah, trying my best. I feel like that's all you can do in art, is try your best with the knowledge you have at the time. And obviously you can do research and you can learn more about what you're doing, but the moment you start something, you only have what you have learned and what you have practiced. And that's why it's important to practice and challenge yourself, because in challenging yourself, you end up learning more about what you're trying to do. That's why I'm trying out so many different mediums right now, from watercolor to acrylic to just like gouache. I'm doing gouache in my art classes right now at college. And high key, I'm not a master in any of them. I'm just kind of getting the basics of all of them, but I think that's helping me in the grander scheme of like art, in that I'm learning the processes of all these different mediums, which can be cross-applicable sometimes. As you see, I also fixed the clouds, and now I'm changing the mountains to yellow like I have predicted. I feel like that also brings up an important point about like being willing to change things in your paintings as you go along, because something you thought that might once have been good in the painting might not be good in the future, and having the willingness to like let it go and change it and be willing to admit like, oh, that maybe wasn't the best thing I could have done, and go back and change it. It's kind of like, it takes a bit of courage because you have to do it all over again, but it's also like, it can teach you a lot of things, because changing something in a painting is a sign that you might already be improving and that you're noticing things as you go along, which I did here. And as you can see, the mountains are looking so much more like mountains. They're not looking like blobs anymore. Oh my gosh, it makes me so happy to see change. Also, this is like a blue I'm putting in to kind of add the atmospheric hazing. I'm adding like a white kind of trim to the mountains on the light side, just to make them look like the sun's hitting them and making them brighter. I thought that was a really good idea. I don't know if you're supposed to do that. I don't know if it looks like that in nature, but it worked. Also, this is another point where I'm struggling at. A lot of times my mountains just look like layered cones, and I feel like they look like layered cones in this one too. If you look at them, it's like one side is dark, one side is light. If you have any tips on how to fix that, experienced painters out there watching this video, please let me know. I'm still trying to figure it out. Also, these trees were a pain in the butt, in that they were kind of just blobs at first, and trying to figure out how to add the shadow to them was a little difficult. I kind of try to do the same technique I did in some of my other paintings, where I have like 4 shades of green that are varying like colors of varying luminosities. But doing it to a forest, like using that technique on a forest, is much more difficult because you don't have an individual tree to think about. You have a network of trees to think about. So it's not just one side of the tree is brighter and one side of the tree is darker. It's like different spots in the mass are brighter and darker, which I personally don't really know how to do as well. I ended up just kind of randomly adding dark spots and light spots, which is not ideal, but it's what I figured worked like at the time. Like right here, you can see me doing it. I'm just like adding random dark spots, and it doesn't necessarily look like a forest as much as it looks like a field, I guess. Like there's no distinguishment between the trees. And then I tried to add this, which I thought helped at the beginning, but later I decided that it adds a little bit too much contrast to the trees, which draws it away from the mountains. It's like very noisy and very loud. You can see I'm going back here painting over. Again, acrylic is so much more forgiving than watercolor. If I had done that with watercolor, I would have been very deep underwater. I am now adding the bright spots, and again, adding these very randomly. But it works out pretty well. And then you notice this hill up on the corner here. I end up doing something really cool to this hill. I add these grassy leaves, and I think this is like my favorite part because I add the highlights to like the tips of the grass, so it looks like the sun shining off of them, and I'm really happy with that. Here's the finishing touches. I had a little blank spot over here, so I thought I'd make a campfire, and it looked pretty good. It's not perfect. Like, the fire looks pretty good. It looks like a fire, especially from far away. But this person I drew looks more like Chewbacca than it does a person. It's kind of just like a blob of a dude or girl or someone. But I think it turned out okay. I add some smoke to the fire too, which I think also added some perspective. And yeah, that's the painting. So that's the end of the project. I finished the painting in about 3.5, 4 hours. I listened to Son of the Black Sword, an audiobook by Larry Correa, the entire time. It's an okay audiobook, not my favorite, but yeah, it was pretty fun. I'm recording this like 3 days after I painted it because I'm finally getting to like editing this video now because I had a lot of homework this week. But thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. And if you made it all the way to the end here, I want to thank you because you're pretty cool. You watched my entire video. Anyways, hope you have a great day. Peace out. Do something cool. Bye-bye.